We're now going to be starting on that buffalo chicken dip. I'm going to let that cool, and then we're going to brush it with butter, top it with some blue cheese, and broil it. Then we're going to use it to dip our barbecue chicken dip into. Our cake is now out. It hit 205 in the center, which means it's done. Hey everybody, Omar here. So I'm just starting up some baguettes. It's a recipe my dad and I kind of found out was worked best for us after some experimentation way back in the day. I've modified it to run on sourdough, so I've just got 342 grams of all-purpose flour, since I don't have bread flour, and 208 grams of water. I'm just going to let that autolyze, so it's going to start forming some gluten, after which I'm going to add 13 grams of salt and 100 grams of sourdough starter. Aha! And we're back. Okay, so we're gonna head over to the grocery store, which is 5 minutes away. We're gonna pick up some stuff. We're gonna be making a chocolate cake from Chef Steps, and we're gonna be making Chef John's buffalo chicken dip to go with those baguettes. Alright, and about 20 minutes later, we're back, and that was madness. Got everything we needed, but I don't think I've seen a store that crowded even like Christmas Eve. I said that to the cashier, and they're like, oh, this is basically a normal Sunday. So, we'll see. Okay, folks, we're back. I've got 100 grams of starter in here, and now I'm adding 12 grams of salt. We're going to mix that all up, start kneading it. Hopefully some of that gluten development kind of jump-started with that autolyse. And then, now that that's done, I'm going to feed my starter here. I've named him Gobbles. I started him just before Thanksgiving, thus the name. So I'm going to give him 55 grams of flour and 55 grams of water. Alright folks, so I recently purchased this from HomeGoods. It is a Fat Daddy-O's anodized cake pan. It's a 4x3, and look how adorable this thing is. It's so tiny. So it's going to be perfect for 2 people. Much better than doing like an 8x2 or an 8x3 and having just a god-awful amount of cake left. So, as I said, I'm doing the ultimate chocolate cake from Chef Steps, and I'm going to be doing a fifth of a recipe. The only real modification I'm going to be doing is I'm going to add, I think, about 5 grams of espresso powder, just to deepen the chocolate notes. But in the meantime, I got my dry mix here. I'm going to throw together my wet mix, get that all mixed up, and get that in the oven. Okay, so for the dry mix, the espresso powder that I added was 3 grams, not 5, since 3 seemed like it was going to be plenty. Now, I also subbed avocado oil for the canola oil, because A, I didn't have canola oil, and B, avocado oil is a bit healthier, and it also doesn't have a flavor, so it shouldn't really impact anything. Now, I also doubled the amount of vanilla extract in this recipe, since I do like vanilla, and those should be the only modifications I'm going to be making. Okay, our cake pan is now, it is sprayed and floured. Our wet and dry mix is together. We're adding a little bit of boiling water now to get everything homogeneous. And here we go. Batter is now in. I have to say I scaled the recipe perfectly because it fills that pan to just about 3/4, which is what I was intending. So this is now going to go right in the oven. I'm going to pop some of these bubbles quick. I tested this batter, and I've got to say it's one of the best tasting batters I've ever made, so I can highly recommend this cake so far. Okay, now that the cake is in the oven and while that's going on, we're going to make a simple syrup, which is going to be sugar and water boiled together until the sugar dissolves. Then we're going to add a little bit of alcohol for flavor. We're now going to be starting on that buffalo chicken dip. So the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to take our saucepan, heat it over medium-high heat. We're going to give chicken thighs a good hard sear on the skin side. Then we're going to flip them, we're going to add butter, and we're going to add some Frank's hot sauce. And then we're going to cook them until they're basically falling apart for probably about 2 hours. Okay, so we seared those skin side down, we flipped them, we added 6 tablespoons of water, a half cup of hot sauce, and a half cup of butter. Now we're just kind of stirring around to coat the chicken until the butter's all melted. Then we're going to cover it, reduce the heat to low, and simmer for a few hours. Okay, ignore the sound of the coffee maker in the background, but our cake is now out. It hit 205 in the center, which means it's done. We gave it a wrap on the counter to pop any air bubbles, and now I'm going to move it to a cooling rack to let it do its thing for the next probably hour to 2 hours. Alright, and we're back. So the bread has been shaped and is rising, the cake is out of the oven, the chicken is cooked. I pulled the chicken out of the guess, broth or sauce, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to shred it, return it to it, and cook it all down. I'll show you guys that now. So here's the baguettes all rising underneath a hand-woven cloth from my mom. And here's our adorable little 4x3 cake. So I'm going to split that in half. If I get really ambitious, I might split it into thirds. We'll see how it goes. Alright folks, here we go. I took off the crown of the cake, tried those scraps, and oh my god, this is probably the best cake I've ever made. Super moist, super chocolatey. So if you like chocolate cake, this is definitely a must-try recipe. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go in and I'm going to try and separate it into roughly 3 layers. Wabushki! 3 layers. Well, mostly kind of even. I'm apparently really bad at cutting things flat. So now we're going to take our syrup. I'm going to brush it all over the top to keep it nice and moist. Chicken's out. We're going to take that meat, tear it off the bones, remove the skin, and toss the shredded meat back in the pot once we reduce the sauce down a little bit. Okay friends, here is the finished buffalo chicken dip. Shredded chicken has been added, it's all been mixed up, now I'm just keeping it warm until the big game. And on this end we have our icing for the cake. Super chocolatey, just perfect amount of sweetness. Again, I doubled the amount of vanilla since I really like my vanilla. And it tastes amazing. This cake is going to be incredible. Okay, and here we are, our very, very roughly iced cake. It's gonna taste incredible. Looks a little bit wonky, but I am not exactly very good at it. Making a very good icing job. That being said, it's probably one of the best tasting cakes I've ever had. Okay, so our oven is preheated to 550. Gonna toss in our steamer, get our bread. Oh. Alright, the bread is now out. You can listen, you can hear that crackling. That's that crust cracking as it comes down to temperature. So I'm going to let that cool, and then we're going to brush it with butter, top it with some blue cheese, and broil it. Then we're going to use it to dip our barbecue chicken dip into. Alright friends, so we have our crostinis buttered up, now they're spread with blue cheese, and they are ready to go with our dip. So that's all for me folks. Thank you for joining me for today. Enjoy the big game. Hopefully it goes as you want.